A very good evening to you, our esteemed viewer. We are grateful that you have chose Church of Uganda Family TV, and this is the Family Hour, where we bring you enriching content and giving you one empowering episode at a time. This is our Monday edition where we discuss education and career. We discussed about the new lower secondary school curriculum, which we came to know. We realized that very many of us still had questions about this curriculum. Now that the term is soon closing, it is important that we know how far especially the stakeholders, the teachers, the directors have gone with the implementation of this curriculum, because we realized it was calling for a lot. Now, today we are looking at its interpretation. How is it interpreted? How is it implemented? And you who is watching us, because we shall also discuss the timely report. I remember last time there was a time when parents had a lot of issues. They were beating up their children. How can you score 3? You spend a lot of time at school and you score 3. Now, we shall also know where that 3 comes from, or the 2 or the 1 that we already see on the reports that confuses us. But with us is the one, Mr. Mulumba Mathias, who is a curriculum specialist from National Curriculum Development Center. I request him to greet us. Mr. Mulumba, you're most welcome. Kindly greet our viewers.
Good evening, viewers. Good evening, Edrin. I'm esteemed to be here. I'm here, and I would like to thank Family TV for giving us the opportunity to share what is going on in the new lower secondary curriculum. You are most welcome.
Thank you so much. And today we have another special guest. Of course, he's part of the family, but sometimes he disappears. He will tell us where he hides. But join me as we also welcome Mr. Kyeyune Andrew, who is an educationist, he's a teacher, he's a counselor, he's a man of very many talents. Mr. Kyeyune, you're most welcome.
Oh yes, thank you so much.
Yes.
I also, in the same breath, greet all the viewers of Family TV out there. Thank you so much for always tuning in, and more so, Family TV, we must thank you for always bringing such educative programs. My name, as he said, Kyeyune Andrew, an educationist and a member, actually a director of operations, Transformers Hub, an organization and entity that is very dedicated to transforming lives timelessly. That is where I hide, and at times I don't spare time here. But today I'm finally here, ready to share out with parents and maybe even other teachers and managers of these education institutions.
And we're indeed grateful now that you're leading Operation Transformers. We were told that this lower secondary school curriculum came to transform the education system. Now, before I go to Mr. Mulumba, I'll start with you. First of all, share with us the experience, what you find unique, what you find challenging, what you find good, and what you find still lacking in this curriculum for a start.
Oh, that is rather a broad discussion. One may look at it as a very simple question to answer. But one, we must embrace change. And when you look at the old curriculum that was knowledge-based, it would not give all learners a fair platform, a fair play. It was to either prove that you're really capable, you're strong academically, or you're weak and the world rejects you. Where I would only at the end of the day look at the report. You're either in the first grade, and even the first grade would go into details of 4, 5, 6, or if it is senior 4, are you getting 8 in 8 or 9? And whoever would come with a 4th or even a much lower grade would not seem to be relevant to this world. But in reality, that is not what should be used as the yardstick in measuring one's potential. I may not be good in math, but I have potential in history. We just cannot all be the same. That is why at times we feel so hurt when we find our topmost leaders pushing and emphasizing science and ignoring, almost kicking out the arts. But we just cannot all be the same. By the way, if in this world we are all to be the same, this would then be a very boring, ugly world. So when you look at the new curriculum that is competence-based, it gives every child an opportunity to express, it creates a fair playground where everyone's potential is appreciated. So we appreciate in the first angle the new curriculum as opposed to the old curriculum. This does not mean the old curriculum was bad or the new curriculum is the best. The only point of appreciation in there, the fairness in especially judging and assessing all the learners. They are given a fair ground and they are given chance to really exhibit their potentials, which may not necessarily have been the case with the old curriculum. Then it also inculcates in the sense of creativity. There is a lot of creativity now seen or exploited from the learners, which perhaps was not the case. With the old curriculum, it was more of cram, reproduce it, and go. So failure to cram and reproduce it would paint you a different or a weak learner. Now that was the challenge. But now when you look at the whole experience, as you asked me, it may not be very easy for one to say it is the best experience. We are in a trial and error basis that we may not ably and safely draw conclusions. By the way, we can best draw conclusions after a cycle of around 8, 7, 10 years. Because right from the learners, the teachers, the managers, the advocates of the new curriculum, the UNEP that is purely in charge of the exams, we are all in an experimental stage. So when one says what would be the experience, it may not be an easy question to answer. But now, at least for the 3 years it is being practiced, people are increasingly appreciating. In the first case, there was a lot of bias. Teachers were very biased. And right now, they seem to be appreciating. Maybe it has lessened their work. Maybe that is the first experience they are enjoying. The teaching has been made simpler. Painfully to say, now everyone can be a teacher. Everyone can be a teacher. But it also comes with so many ugly issues behind. Only that at times we don't want to appear to be on opposition. The only ugly thing, personally, I would see with the new curriculum, there was a hurry in the whole implementation. A very uncalled for rush. Because there are 3 things for us who are in education that were combined, and that was the most unfortunate bit. Content adjustment, which perhaps wouldn't have been very hard. Telling you scrap off this, adding this, that would have been very easy. Maybe we should have started with that. Then the teaching methodology, but worst of all, the assessment part. Now, the biggest gambling as we talk now is in assessment. And we are trying to pick on, but the pain behind all these education institutions, we have not yet understood the likely picture at the end of the day. Because now the difference, as you will later tell us, NCDC and UNEP are 2 independent organs, which are meant actually to be one. But somehow, somewhere, they seem to be independent, and at times, painfully to say, they fail to agree. So you find the new curriculum, yes, they have designed what should be taught, how it should be taught, but they may not have the conclusive say on how it should be examined. Now, the one in charge of examining also seems to have a different idea, and now there is need to have this emerged, and I think the process is ongoing to have a final say. But now, for us who are teaching people to be examined, we don't seem to be very knowledgeable right now on exactly how it's going to be examined, how it's likely to look out, to appear at the end of the day. But just like any other new program, It's like a woman who is pregnant. You just appreciate she's pregnant, but you may not have an idea of how the baby will look like. But you appreciate and you give it the 9 months. So we must, in this case, give it the 4 years. Yes, we have the nature of some of the sample questions, but you feel people are not very sure. Most of these questions have been generated by teachers. But we must agree on one thing. In Uganda, we tend to look at UNEB as the very last body to give us the final picture and the final nature of the questions. But now teachers have been really trained to create questions that are scenario-based. Imagine this, or in a situation of this. Now, people imagine scenarios and they set questions along that element, of course, with the intentions of inculcating the sense of children being able to solve or address problems. But at the end of the day, questions are set, yes, and they are doing that. But they don't seem to be very sure. Am I doing what it shall still at the end of the day appear to be the same? Or I'm totally on a different page and UNEB is bound to be on a different page. So those are all challenges. And still, you find, of course, challenges, as we said, there are very many with the new curriculum. There are indeed many. And we can only, given the interest of time, only pick on to a point here and there. When you look at the nature, or leave alone the assessment part, but the whole content delivery calls for 80% of research, and it's student-centered. So you find still students must do a lot of research. Actually, a teacher is now meant to be a facilitator. That's why I said anyone can now be a teacher. A teacher only facilitates and guides the learning. Unlike the other old curriculum where the teacher would seem to be the alpha and the omega of knowledge. Right now, it is really the student to make their own research and maybe later share as the teacher guides or facilitates. But now when it gets into making the research that is needed, there are challenges. You find the new pupils or students of Senior 1. They have just newly been introduced to this subject. And you find the teacher right from the introductory part, the next thing is go and make research on this. And I told you teachers are also gambling. You find fresh graduates, most of these schools you go to have fresh graduates. These are guys who are taught under totally different curriculum. A little is addressed at the university, so they get into the real practice when they're in school. So after school practice, 2-3 weeks down the road, someone is employed and is entrusted with the class. Now, you see real drama. The teacher is really very fresh. He was never taught under that arrangement. But now she must teach under that arrangement. Now, they are the learners where at the end of the day, barring, I'm using the word barring academically. They are told to make research and whatever they present, the teacher seems to agree with them. There is no, because with our old curriculum, you would entrust senior teachers. You say, this one is a senior. At the end of the day, we'll come and polish it up. But now here we don't have any seniority. So
the runners are
we are seated in a train, but we're not very sure of the next destination. So that is the little picture I can paint about this new curriculum.
I'll pick up from one of the points that you talked about, that was rushing in implementation. Actually, the other time after the program, someone sent in a concern and said that there were districts up to last week that had never received instructional materials for Senior 3. So they weren't sure whether for the 2 terms what they've been giving students was really what was required. Now, Mr. Mulumba, back to you, because you were even telling us that the A-level curriculum is in pipeline. Now we look at the 1 year probably that we have for piloting, but also implementation, rolling out, and also training the teachers who are going to implement it so that it also sticks in their minds. Don't you think there was somehow a rush?
Thank you very much. I would like to thank Kyeyune for giving the picture and highlighting what is happening in our schools. We are on board. And personally, who has been there? The change started long ago, except that it became very visible in 2020. The change started way back in 2006, and that is when Honorable Bitamazire got cabinet clearance within a minute from cabinet, allowing National Curriculum Development Center to embark on the change. Thereafter, a number of activities were carried out. One was carried out by Dr. Najingo, now who works with World Bank, to find out what are the challenges that we have. That was done in 2007. In 2009, in preparation to change the curriculum, there was an effort by the ministry, and a circular was released by the ministry to all schools to prepare for the change. And that circular was saying, let us reduce the number of subjects, because on the menu, we had 43 subjects, and the learners were overloaded with a lot of subjects to do, but those that appear on the final certificate are few. So in 2009, that circular was asking students of senior 1 and 2 to take 14 subjects, with physical education being teachable but not examinable. But in 2011, NCDC embarked on the design process, and it took us all that time until 2020. We had some pilots with different schools, like I shared last time. Yeah. And in 2016, stakeholders said, wait a minute, we are not ready. We are not ready. But the package also, you have packaged that way, but it seems the system is not ready for that kind of package. And since curriculum is a stakeholders process, NCDC and the ministry agreed with the stakeholders to repackage into 20 subjects. And in 2020, we were ready to go because we had worked for that long. Except that when we are piloting, we use research methods and you sample. You don't go to everybody. It is like when you get malaria, they don't get all the blood from your body. They just get a sample to test whether malaria is there in you or not. So likewise, the curriculum was tested, and the materials, the National Curriculum Development Center was ready, because the publishers were asked in 2019 that write books in May 2019. But by December, they were not yet ready. So when they were not ready, NCDC had a prototype which was used to start off the process. And this was to guide the teachers that we have changed the design, as he has mentioned, the way the content is supposed to be delivered, the way the learners are supposed to learn, and the way assessment has to appear. So teaching, learning, and assessment go together. We should not always separate them. If you separate them, then you are creating problems. The thread should run through teaching, learning, and assessment. The thread should be going through. So we oriented the teachers in January, February 2020, before COVID took us on. Then thereafter in 2021, teachers were oriented in different parts of Uganda. 2022, we have continued to orient, aware that some of these methodologies were taught, like many teachers were taught learner-centered approach. But when they reached the school, it was not the practice. So you have to remind them. Then group work was taught in most of the teacher training colleges. And luckily enough, around 2016, there was a very serious training approach in the national teachers colleges called Active Teaching and Learning, which emphasizes these learner-centered approaches. So they need only to be reminded and given examples of how to do it. But the preparation has been there for a long time. Like now, when you talk about A-level, we have started the preparation. But when we shall be actualizing, people will be saying, you have hurried.
Mr. Mulumba,
yes.
There is a case here where it is alleged. I say it is alleged because this was a concern from a viewer who is a teacher, actually. He says, now that you said publishers were given 6 months to publish the books, and by December 2020, they had not yet produced the work. But we now look at 3 years almost gone, and someone says that up to now, there are schools that have not received instructional materials, that even for some subjects, they have just been received of recent. Is this true or not? And if it is true, then don't you think we say somehow we lacked preparedness for this? Because if we have senior 1, senior 2 now, the senior ones then are in senior 3, but still instructional materials are still a challenge, yet they have only one term to be in senior for now. If by this time you're distributing senior 3 materials, then what will happen next year?
Yeah, when you say that, you seem to have forgotten that we've experienced COVID from 2020, and I want to emphasize to you that this country has capacity to produce materials, but when it comes to big numbers, most of the publishers had to do it in India. So, and when COVID was there, the process got delayed. But luckily enough, by June, all the publishers were given the clearance to start distributing books. And if the schools have not yet received, they need to only inform the Commissioner, Minister of Education and Sports, the Commissioner Government Schools, to let him speed up the process with the publishers to see that the books, because government has come in to see that books are delivered, but the only delay was where they were printed from. It was a long journey from Uganda to India. Most of the books they were just being shipped in after COVID had eased out. But in terms of preparation, because we evaluated these books in December 2020, and the senior 3 in 2021, all these books were evaluated and the publishers were told, bring the books. But the movement by the plane, by the officers to the different parts of the world to see that the things arrive here maybe caused a lot of trouble for them. But we are sure each school will receive books. Also, we need to inform the teachers that, as you mentioned earlier, that writing of books is done by the teachers themselves. Even those books the publishers they just only printed large scale in another place, but they were written by Ugandan teachers. So as a teacher, you are supposed to develop learning materials. So when you look at an example, you should be able to move forward. But if you wait to be spoon-fed, that's when you get a challenge. You see, like now, even when you talk about assessment, even in the previous curriculum, assessment was being done, the items were being written by teachers. Likewise, even these ones are going to be written by the classroom teachers. The only thing, they need to be guided on how to do it, using the design that is now in place. Yes.
Well, when you talk about assessment, I think we are going to dwell much on assessment, especially to let a mother or a father out there understand basically what is being assessed, what is being done, because like I always have a little sister who is in senior 3 now, but the first time she brings this report home, we see 2.5. I was like, for Christ's sake, what is 2.5? So, Mr. Kyeyune, back to you as someone who is there. We are looking at this assessment. Late, of course, Mr. Mulumba will tell us why they had to drop the other one, which we were used to. When you get 90, then you walk celebrating, and then it was less to what does the 3 mean, what does the 2 mean, what does the 1 mean, if a parent wants to understand this.
Yes, the whole assessment is a tricky thing because it goes beyond. Actually, the parent is looking at that 2, 3, 1. I'm looking at it from even a broader angle. That at the end of the year, at the end of every other given topic, there is that activity of integration, which is supposed to, at the end of the day, be all piled. There is some mark that is supposed to be sent to you. So it is long and bigger than what an ordinary parent may quickly understand. And there are those other technicalities where I cannot even say I'm educating the parent, but maybe I'll begin with this other minor and quicker interpretation to a parent looking at a child's results, reading 3, 2, and 1. As opposed,
and the decimals as well.
As opposed to the ordinary 60, 78 or D1, D2 that would quickly bring a sense.
Yes.
That even when you say F9, any parent would really understand that my child has failed. Now, with a new curriculum that is competence-based, if I cannot run, I can jump. If I cannot sing, I can swim. So my inability to swim does not make me a weak child. My inability to run, and I find I can best jump, does not mean the one who swims is then a better student. One person created a scenario of a fish given the task to climb the tree, and then the monkey given the task to swim. The monkey could just not even try out swimming, but give it the assignment of climbing the tree. Trust me, you just cannot beat it. Then the fish given the assignment of climbing the tree, it's just not there. But take it into water, it will show you all its skills. That is now the competence-based. That looks at a child's ability. Now, if a question is given, and which question is basing on a given scenario, where every child is given freedom to do their own interpretation. A child, this time we no longer have 0, because the ability, your ability or your potential and even your will to enter an exam and even maybe just write the name does not mean you're totally a weak child. At least you are able to sit in there, you have been able, you have attended lessons, and you can even write your name. That alone at least can qualify you for 1. Only that. Then, when you interpret the question and write something fairly or reasonable, I can give you a 2. But then there is that other child who will exactly interpret, explain, give examples, and exactly hit the question. That goes to excellency. The first one was just basic, maybe interpreted, could have even just written questions, the very questions, and the student ended up rewriting them, reproducing the same questions. But then I appreciate the ability that he can even be able to read and again write, or even write his name, and even sit in an exam for a given duration. I respect that and award 1. But 1 is just basic. The child is below average. There is still a lot of weakness. But I'm not saying the child is dense, as we quickly conclude. Parents have that those are the words that we grew up using, and we don't want to demoralize children in the academic world. Because remember, it is competency-based. You may not have been able to calculate a number, but if the exam was singing, then you may be the other upcoming Jose Chameleon. So I still appreciate value and see sense in this child. Then if the child is able to interpret and write something with some little sense, the child gets 2. Moderate, average. But then I can go to 3 where I really feel the child is good. She has interpreted the question. But then, remember, in this world, we have good, better, and best. That we have a good child, we have even seen the other one who is better, but then there is that other person who will even add in an extra ingredient, or an extra example that is very vivid. You're talking about words, and the child is able to even cite out what is happening in Niger. Meaning the child is even more informed. So I can end up giving +1, adding in that other 1, which is not easily given. But there are those other extra brilliant students who will then qualify for that other extra mark. So you find it is rotating around 1, 2, 3. We don't have the 0. No, we assume everyone, at least the fact that you can breathe in and out and even walk into the exam, you don't qualify for a 0. 0 would mean you are totally nothing. But I appreciate the fact that I've even written my name. I was able to know that the name is needed. So parents should know, maybe in simple terms, that 1 would perhaps be between 1 and 20 or 1 and 30 in our ordinary setting. Then when I come to 2, perhaps that would be 40 to 50. Then 3 would at least be in the range of 70 to 80. Yeah, So at least when you see a 3, you have a reason to buy a child a soda. Okay. Oh yes. 1, encourage the child to work harder, to put in more efforts. 2, the child is average, but perhaps needs more push and guidance here and there. So that is basically the ordinary interpretation of 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Oh yes.
So just in case a child comes with 3, 3, 3, how will a parent know that they are progressing or they are stunted at the other point where they get 3 and there is nothing much they're adding on to what they're doing? Like in the previous curriculum, where someone would really get 65,
Then
maybe.
the same you see 80.
Yes. Is that progressive record?
We don't want to only look at it like it was in the old curriculum, where a child is only assessed on grounds of marks. This is competence. That is why even they are against termly exams.
Okay.
But schools, I don't want to say legally do it, but for the sake of causing accountability, we end up creating some exams to give learners so that when they come back home, because it would really be hurting, the child comes back home with totally nothing. Or maybe just marks of the activity of integration, and then you have to wait for the whole year. That would perhaps cause more questions. So we end up giving exams, but it is just beyond exams. We even have project work, that having learned a lot of chemistry and mixing up chemicals in a given year, is there anything you can think of using that knowledge and come up with something? Then I would even love a student who will mix Coca-Cola with the Omo, with what, to see what exactly do they come up with at the end of the day. Otherwise, it becomes very funny. One having studied physics the whole year, but cannot even fix a bulb, or cannot even do any simple electrical experiment. So we go into projects.
Okay.
So the projects should also show the parent, besides the marks, the level of creativity and knowledge acquired. That's why now schools are doing a lot of exhibition. And the pain behind is that they are guiding students come up with a lot, but it should rather be students' creativity, and they come up with something that should, but the pain is that teachers are now guiding a lot, and at the end of the day, the child is just duplicating what the teacher has instructed. That is now the ugly part of it. But otherwise, the curriculum is designed that having been taught this and the other, for you, what can you really think of? And that is real to inculcate and stimulate the other inner ability, because at the end of that day, when you look at your documents, or all the documents we have, your potential is seen by your academic documents.
Exactly.
That's why for any job interview, I could be the best person to sit here. But when you look at my documents, perhaps they may not reflect that potential. But give me the mic. And I've loved it, and I'm enjoying it with especially media, where it is now more of talent. Not how many degrees or masters you have in mass communication, but now they go to exactly the talent, because the whole nature of the job calls for that talent. So that is what the new curriculum is trying to build. So my point to the parents out there, that besides the 3-2, I think that is not the only yardstick. That is not the only thing you should look out in a child to measure their potential, their level of achievement. You look at even the project work they are doing, and maybe that should show you some bit of creativity. If the girl comes with anything designed, it may look funny, but appreciate the creativity. So that the marks may look at 2 or 3 somewhere, and maybe only 2, 3 somewhere, and they can 2s, and maybe the rest 1, 1. But besides that, look at the other creativity in the child.
Okay. Well, Mr. Mulumba, still talking about
Assessment.
You know, there are a lot of questions. Like Mr. Kyeyune is putting up that even the teachers are left in space, because I'll give you a scenario. Early this year, news published that DIT was to carry on assessment in Senior 3. And then, before we know, after teachers have panicked, school proprietors and their teachers have panicked to acquire center numbers for DIT, then still news come out. DIT assessment has been halted. Then there is also UNEB. So I think this now brings out this confusion. Which of these bodies is supposed to carry on the assessment? Or if both are carrying on assessment, what is UNEB assessing and what is DIT to assess at the end of the day?
Thank you, Edrin, and thank you, Kyeyune. I want to start from Kyeyune's point.
Yes.
One, the new curriculum aims at what can you do after interacting with the teacher, your peers, or your fellow students, and the environment. And if we use the comparison of building, let me use that one. At the building site, we have a porter. Then we have the mansion and the engineer.
Yes.
The three are all needed, but each one performs the building at a different level. So the 3 marks are like, the engineer is at 3 level because for him, he just touches the wall. And he says, who built here? Break if it is not to the standard. Is at a higher level of understanding building. The one who is the mansion, the builder, will do the measurements, will use the tape measure, will use the spirit level, will put if they are bricks, put them there. So is that accuracy level is applying the knowledge as it is technically known. Then we have the potter. The potter, you tell him, bring sand, bring bag of cement, bring water, and you mix the mortar and you bring the pan here where I'm building. For him is needed. He knows the materials, but he can even learn on the job and eventually become also a builder. So there is room for improvement at each level. So in the assessment, we are looking for what can you do if we are at a building site, for instance. So in a topic, what can you do? And we are saying you can integrate. Well, like when Kyeyune was speaking, he was pulling different pieces and putting them together to create this conversation we have. He was pulling from different parts of his knowledge base and using it to make the conversation flowing. Likewise, when the learners are taught the different parts of the curriculum, they can pull different pieces to address a given situation. Like Kyeyune was put here to talk about assessment. He pulled knowledge from the classroom, from the textbook, from the assessment point of view, and then made the conversation flow. Likewise, when the children are taught, we would like them to integrate the knowledge they have to address the problems they face, because that is what real life demands from us. 2, the teachers should be able to know how this assessment goes. We said in the books, the teaching syllabus, that we shall have assessment at the end of the topic, such that when a topic has been learned, can the learner integrate that knowledge to address a societal problem, to address a scenario situation given to the learner? That is application of what you have learned to a real life situation. The previous curriculum, which you are talking about, was emphasizing what can you remember. The difference now is how can you apply and use what you've learned.
Okay.
The example of the project, learners in senior 2 have a topic on environmental pollution. I want to give the example of a project done by a student of one of the schools. He realized he was walking from a village to school and rain was destroying his books. He saw very many containers of mineral water, the 10-liter bottles. He came and cut and then put wires in the plastic and used it as a school bag. And when people saw it, they were so excited. He was solving a problem for those who do not have bags, school bags, but he was using waste, which was polluting the environment. So he's addressing a societal problem from the topic in English language, which is environment and pollution. He's trying to apply, because there the learning outcome was asking them, what can you do with materials that is put on a landfill? That was the learning outcome. How can you help the environment to be safe? And the learner is now recycling the materials. So that can be a project. Then recently I saw on many platforms, some children in one school have made chairs like these ones, but from plastic bottles of 500 mils. And these chairs are now being used. People are putting there the cloth such that you can sit on those chairs and use them. Which body is supposed to assess this curriculum is the key question. When we were designing, this is a dual curriculum because it is about applying, and you apply by doing. So when you do, you have the knowledge, which we can assess using the scenario-based questions or the situational judgment items. But when we want to know what you can do, we were lucky enough in 1953 in Uganda, Directorate of Industrial Training was established. It has been there. It has been assessing people about how they can put what they know into products and services. So we call that employable skills. That the IT is meant or has the mandate to assess what you can do practically. UNEB has the mandate to assess how much you can, now in the new curriculum, you can apply the knowledge acquired in a new situation. So that is the difference. And in applying the new knowledge, or your knowledge you have acquired in a new situation, we call it scenario-based assessment or activity of integration. And that understanding needs to be clear. UNEB is doing what it is supposed to do, and DIT is supposed to do what it is supposed to do. The only thing with DIT, you come to be assessed when you are ready. Like, I want to compare it to driving. When you want a driving permit, you go to the IOV, the Inspector of Vehicles. Not everybody goes there, only those who are ready. And that's how DIT assesses. UNEB is going to assess you on how you apply the knowledge to address a new situation that has been contextualized to you. And that is the difference.
And how are these marks going to be tallied so that at the end of the day, a child has one maybe result slip, or DIT will award its result slip, and UNEB will also award an independent result slip?
So these are two assessment bodies. They are
and what about the marks that the teachers are supposed to send to UNEB, like Mr. Kyeyune told us?
So let me start with DIT. DIT assesses people in an occupation. In agriculture, so far, I know there are 20 occupations that the syllabus of agriculture from senior 1 to senior 4 contains. There are 20 occupations. So a learner can choose one of those occupations if he can be able to do according to market standards to be assessed by DIT at the time when the learner is ready and is able to perform according to market standards, industrial standards. If he's not ready, don't force the learner. That is, even when you yourself, if you want a driving permit, the IOV does not force you that come and I test you. You go there when you are ready. Then with UNEB, we are going to assess how you apply knowledge to a situation provided to you. How you use the knowledge you have acquired to a situation given to you. So the assessment scores the teachers are making, we want them at UNEB, all of them. Those assessments will show that you have learned. Currently, in the old curriculum, some people have been just coming and sitting exams. We don't know whether they learned or they didn't learn. We want to know that they have learned, because competence-based, as he has put it, is about mastery of what you have learned. So to be sure that you pass through learning and you have mastery of it, we must have the scores from the school. Then DIT, those scores, according to the principles of assessment, will be taken to UNEB. Then the scores from projects also will go to UNEB. Then the score of the final assessment by UNEB will be there. I compare it to when you want to check your vehicle. If you go to a garage to check your vehicle, The mechanics there or the engineers there will tell you the lights are like this, the oil is at this level, the engine is working this way. Each part of the vehicle will be given a description. Likewise, UNEB, that's what it is going to do. It will tell us, how did you perform in the activities of integration? How did you perform in the projects? And how did you perform in the final integration at Senior 4? And it will give you a detailed description of what you can do according to how you have been performing.
Okay.
So that detailed description is what is missing at the school level. The teachers are still used to good, excellent. No, we want the teacher to describe in details what Mulumba can do in vegetable growing. Can I raise a nursery bed and all the seedlings are good to be transplanted? The teacher should be able to describe that and send that description to the parent as well to that head teacher of the school. Then the head teacher will transmit that description to UNEB. Then UNEB, using its items that they are preparing, they will be able to describe that for us, we see your level of integration of the knowledge you have, your level of application of the knowledge you have. This is what you can do in agriculture or in English language. Because currently the scores of 90 do not have that description. And we want to know, what does 3 mean if you have got 3 in the new lower secondary curriculum? What does 2 mean? What does it tell me if I wanted to interact with you?
Okay.
The 90 or the D1 was not telling us that.
True.
So it was like a blanket grade or a balloon grade. You don't understand what is in the balloon. And when you press it very quickly, the air goes out and you can't see what was swelling in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Kyeyune, as we draw closer to this discussion, now there is this other concern. Parents actually complaining a lot that project is like project, tours are like tours. So each time in a term, a student can ask for over 300,000 shillings to go for trips, to do project work, to do, and why do you have to now press the parents to the wall? They are struggling with school fees in this economy, and then projects are becoming projects, and it is alleged that some people are just using this as an advantage an opportunity to take advantage of the situation and maybe benefit.
You're right, and when I stand this other side as a teacher, that does not take away the fact that I'm a parent as well. So I exactly understand what parents go through. And the only advantage is that I exactly know what is even in the school setting. As I said from the beginning, Mr. Mulumba will paint it in a way that things are okay. And the parent listening out there may quickly imagine, people have exactly understood what they are doing in schools. I'm here to tell you the truth.
They're just exploiting us.
There is a problem. In schools, it is still trial and error. Because right from the advocators of new curriculum, none of them studied under that arrangement. But that is what is now being implemented. When I biblically try that line, for Jesus to live and do some great work within us, he had to accept to be born like us. And that is when exactly he understood the human elements. Now, we are in a very deadly situation that those who are implementing, pushing for the new curriculum did not go through that situation. They were never taught like that. Even those who are teachers, they were not taught in that line, but they must now implement that. Yes, I agree, we must accept change. But now when it comes to the issues of trips, projects are not meant to call for a lot of money. Actually, he will tell you that we are supposed to work within the resources available, within our environment and within our reach. But because people out there, those teaching the children to do projects, are gambling. I must use that exact word. I don't have, I think, any other cheaper word. They are forcing learners to pick it in a different line. They end up drawing funny, unnecessary budgets to the parents. And at times, you cannot talk of creativity and you don't bring in the money element. Because I want to come up with something of this nature. Therefore, if I find I must buy this, add it with this. But otherwise, it should be that use resources within the environment. Like he talked about this environmental protection, where a child had to pick onto a thrown bottle and had to create something out of it. But now it is so absurd that students, you find you have 4 kids. One is in school A, they are thinking of a given project, and they have drawn a very big budget. The one in the other school has also talked of something, and they must come up with something. So at the end of the day, the parent who is sponsoring all these kids throughout is finding a very bigger budget. But parents need to know out there, these projects should not really be calling for a lot of money injection. Let children use the available resources around to come up with something, that level of creativity. But of course, we all understand creativity goes to, it matches with a given age. There is something you don't expect a senior one to come up with. And maybe a senior in first term, second term, what much have they covered to really come up with a given project? That is also another question there. Then, some schools are now, because children are idle, because this new curriculum has also brought in the element of idleness. Because according to the advocates and implementers, it should be that past 2, children are not in physical class, but they're either making research, all right? But at the end of the day, the schools we are operating in, some schools don't even have reasonable computer labs. Yeah. And research is not only about computer. That is my understanding of research. But it is all restricted to computer. People are advocating, they must all have phones in school. You know, there is a lot of misinterpretation of the new curriculum. Everyone is interpreting it their own way. So at the end of the day, children are so idle. And schools are now rushing. Where should we take them? They should be exposed to this. After all, it's all research. Now, the teacher of chemistry is thinking of going to a given factory to expose children. And that calls for money for that trip. The one of English is also now thinking of something to expose the learners. Because this is purely no longer theoretical. It is more or less practical. And you can't be practical unless you're exposed. The one of history is also thinking of now which trip should I create. Maybe they should go to the museum. Maybe we should go to the other side. So that these things are just not only learned theoretically in books. They should practically come up and see them or even have a touch. Now trust me, even the one of fine art thinks of where to take them. So everything has been seen purely in the line of trips. Because one, teachers feel learners should be exposed. Yeah. But now when I step out slightly out of the shoes of a teacher and I now speak as parent, as an educationist and as a parent, because these are things we teach administrators out there. In fact, there has been a very serious outcry last term. Trips were becoming a nuisance. Everyone is thinking of trips, of course, with intentions of making money. You find kids are taken to a nearby place and all of a sudden you must pay 70,000. Why should you make students move 50 kilometers because you're calling it a trip? Anything you're looking out for in the 50-kilometer radius can still be got in a 5-kilometer radius. Maybe there is a lot we need to teach managers of these education institutions. But all these problems are as a result of misinterpretation of the new curriculum. And those are some of the effects we are really meeting. But as a cry to our managers of schools, be very careful with these trips. It is now losing sense. If I want to look at how tea is grown, I mean, Entebbe, Kajansi, what makes me travel, take children to Kasaku tea estate, when there is Nachigalala that does the same? You find someone is taking children to Masese fish landing site, when the same landing site is around Kasim. Of course, we know teachers want to make money, but look at a scenario where children get an accident on the way. How you will explain this? This is a caution to all the school managers. The new curriculum does not mean children must be moved 1,000 kilometers in chemistry, the next day it is in physics. Let us use the local environment around the school, and if we must come up with something, let it be within. Yes, I agree, you may not have everything around the school, but if you must stretch out, then it shouldn't go into 5-10 kilometers.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Mulumba, as we wind up this discussion, we are looking at the issue of trips and field work and all that. What does the curriculum say about these trips, so that at least a parent can understand? Maybe the next time, if they are challenged at school, they can still fight for their rights.
Thank you very much. The curriculum follows a design called integration. So when we are integrating, many subjects work together, many ideas work together. So I don't expect that one teacher of each subject has to take children out of the school.
So those are 10
trips. It doesn't work. So as he has put it, we need to have in-depth interpretation of the curriculum with the teachers, with the administrators, and also the parents need to be educated. So for the teachers, we need to work together as a team, because our children would not be team workers if ourselves we are not working as a team at the school level. So we could just have one trip for even 10 subjects, only one trip, so long as the children are given guiding questions that cover all the subjects. So they need to have what I would call a multidisciplinary approach to projects, that is one, or to activities, to trips. They can work together. Like if we wanted to do beekeeping, is one of the activities in northern Uganda, where we get our honey from. It has biology about insects. It has agriculture because it is bee rearing. It has technology and design because they have to make beehives. It has food and nutrition in it. It has entrepreneurship. It has English. Geography is there. You are looking at the natural resources.
I think mathematics.
Mathematics is there. So all of the subjects, physics is there. How do you make those beehives such that they can hang properly and they don't fall down because of gravity and so on? So these teachers, in only one aspect, they can handle very many subjects if they were working as a team.
Okay. We are closing. Mr. Kyeyune, your closing remarks in a minute or less. And yes. I know it is now holiday, and operation at Transformers Hub is much more into counseling and a career guidance. Yeah, someone would really be interested in at least looking for you, just in case you can. Yes.
Parents out there, Kyeyune Andrew is from Transformers Hub, where we are very dedicated to transforming lives of especially the youth. Feel free, get me on 0702 0706 28 1566 0706 28 1566. All find us in Namgongo Transformers Hub. We are ready to help out the generation, to help out the youth. Thank you so much for listening.
Mr. Mulumba, your closing remarks as we wind up this discussion.
I thank you very much, Family TV, for giving us this opportunity. I would encourage everybody to join hands with the Ministry of Education and Sports, with National Curriculum Development Center, to see that we open our minds to the change and we accept the change and do all that it takes to see that the change can be implemented as desired. I don't want to say what he has said at the beginning, that we are here, all of us, to see that we have a child who is competent. When he comes out there, he should be able to do something to sustain his life or her life, to have something he can do for society. So we have to join hands to achieve that. Thank you.
And thank you so much, you who has been watching us from the time we started. This is the Family Hour only on Church of Uganda Family TV, every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Monday, we talk about education and career. Tuesday, it is family health. Wednesday, family finances and wealth. Thursday, leadership and governance. And of course, we nail it on Friday with parenting. God bless you. We meet again next time.